Hello, I see you're back for more. Or if you haven't seen the first part of this series, I'd highly suggest that you click on the upper right hand corner to watch the first part of this series. We are taking the political compass test. Today we're going to be talking about the economy, so let's jump right in. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Yeah. So if you compare someone who's really wealthy in Europe versus someone who's really wealthy in America, their lifestyle might be a little bit different, but in general, you live a pretty comfortable and great life. Now, if you compare someone who's really wealthy in America to somebody who's really poor in America, well, you'll realize that America's social safety net is kind of terrible, so if you're poor in America, you're basically fucked. So it's the difference between are you fucked or are you not fucked? And it pretty much becomes pretty easy to see after that. Now, another thing to consider is, it used to be if you wanted to be connected with somebody from the opposite hemisphere, right? If you're in America and you want to go to Europe, you have to jump on a boat and sail to the other end of the sea. But nowadays we've got cell phones, we've got the internet, and we've got so many ways, right? And we've got airplanes too. So the travel time of communication and physical people, the travel time between Europe and America and any two places in the world has been greatly reduced as time has gone on. But you'll see that wealth, the gap between the most wealthy and the least wealthy, tends to grow over time. So in that sense, it becomes pretty obvious what the pattern is, right? The more technologically advanced we get, the more connected we are over geography, right? The less geography matters, but also the more wealth matters. So people are ultimately divided more by class. Yeah. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I don't know that that's true. I think they're both important to monitor, both important to control, but also they don't tell you the whole story. Right? There's ways to control both of them. You want to control inflation, all you need to do is control the money supply. If you print more money, inflation's going to go up. If you print less money, inflation's going to go down. And if you want to control unemployment, all you need to do is just find some road to build or some bridge to build, and you can suddenly just employ some more people, right? So you can always find shit for people to do. So in both cases, there's ways to control it. So I wouldn't necessarily say that one is more important than the other. I think they're both important, and they don't tell this whole story either. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Absolutely. Some people make an argument that if you're a car manufacturing company, let's say, right, you have an incentive to create fuel-efficient cars, which are better for the they're better for the environment because you use less fuel, right? You use less gas, but they're also better economically, right? So you have an incentive to create fuel-efficient cars because the consumer will realize they need to pay less on gas, right? And it also happens to be better for the environment. So the market can help in some ways, but also not in others, right? If you want to address an environmental issue with the market, you have to hope that the masses, the consumers, are aware of environmental problems. And most of the time, it's not as clear-cut or easy to spot as fuel efficiency, right? What market pressure would make it worth it for you instead of dumping all your wastewater into the river, right? What would make it more financially beneficial for you to treat all that wastewater and recycle it? It actually makes very little financial sense. It's so easy to just dump your shit into the river and be done with it. Leave that problem to somewhere else, right? So in that sense, not everything can get to the point where it's financially beneficial to be good for the environment, right? And one important key factor in that is that the consumers who affect your earnings, that they are aware and that they care. But the problem is, most of the time they don't. Are you going to trust the masses to know about the environment? It's the tragedy of the commons. They don't know things. This is why environmental science is so important, because it's invisible on a daily basis. So most problems aren't staring us in the face like fuel efficiency is. So if you're gonna trust the masses to learn all the environmental effects, you gotta be pretty delusional. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. I'm gonna assume here that everybody has some ability, because if you are just a vegetable and you have no potential to contribute, this might not apply to you. But if you are doing your best, I don't see why it wouldn't be fair for you to expect that if you're contributing as much as you can contribute, you should expect to get society's support in return. I think that's beneficial for basically all of us. The freer the market, the freer the people. No. The free market is an illusion. You got a million brand names that don't actually provide a different product. They just look different. They just seem different. And they use that branding to generate more profit for no innovation. Right? So sometimes there's seems to be more choice than there is. Like in medication. You can get the generic brand or you can get those big brand names, but they sell you the same thing. There's nothing different about the product you're selling or buying. But it costs different amounts for some reason. Right? It's all an illusion to try to get you to pay more money, to try to get more money, to try to make more profits. So even if you think you have choice, you really don't. And sometimes, if you want choice, you don't even have it. Like, if you have an absolutely free market, that opens the way for monopolies, right? Once a monopoly is established, if you have all the power because you have a monopoly, it's easy to keep that power. So, if there's a monopoly, no, there will be no choice, and you'll know that there will be no choice, and you won't be able to do anything about it. So the freer the market, the freer the people? No, it's all an illusion, it's all a scam, it's all there to just take your money. That's all it is. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. So the basis of capitalism is that you're forced to innovate, right? Innovation drives societal benefit, right? But if you're selling water, how can you innovate on water? It's H2O. It has a value, it has a utility. It's not subjective like a piece of artwork where you can say, I like this piece of aesthetic art. Or someone else can say, meh, I think it's ugly. No, it's water. It has a specific utility. Everybody needs it to survive. So everybody should, by their right to live, if you can't drink your water coming out of your tap, there's something wrong. So the fact that we need to have competing brands of water, it makes no sense. Why do we need competition from one type of H2O to a different type of H2O? It makes no difference. It should not be branded. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Yeah, it's kind of like the water thing. I mean, what you have to realize is you can't really innovate land anyway. Who was audacious enough to say, let me just plant my flag here and I guess this land's ours. All right, we went to the moon and we're like, America! We'll plant our American flag and I guess this moon is ours now. Hell no, that makes no conceptual sense. Everybody, just like water, everybody needs space to live, and that requires land. It's a right. We all need land to live. Now, it's also really lazy. If you're rich, an easy way to get rich and keep getting even more rich if you're already rich is just buy land. Right? They're not making any more land, but they're making more people. More people to share the same amount of land. You can see how the land property value is going to go up naturally just by the fact that the human population is increasing. So land over time is going to get more and more valuable. but you're not actually doing anything, right? You don't need to do anything to make the land better. All you need to do is buy it and sit on it and wait for the human population to grow. How is that fair? That you can just be rich and just get more rich without doing any actual work. All you need to do is just buy land. That is fundamentally unfair. It doesn't help us innovate, right? You're taking that land saying, nobody can build on it, nobody can use it for anything important. I am keeping this land so that I can get rich. It doesn't help anybody. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I think we touched on that with the land, where all you need to do is just buy some land and keep it and your value is going to go up. I mean, you're not actually innovating, right? What drives capitalism to be successful is the innovation that it forces you to make. But here, you don't need to innovate, right? All you need to do is just buy your land and keep it. And there's your wealth. And the same goes basically with banks. I mean, sure, banks are important. They give you an incentive by way of interest. They give you an incentive to keep innovating, but they're not the ones doing the actual innovation themselves. So, without the actual innovation, the simple manipulation of money, it doesn't make any extra value. So yeah, it is pretty regrettable. Sometimes it's necessary, but it is regrettable that you can make a fortune, an entire fortune, without actually improving our lives. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know very much about protectionism, so it's definitely something I need to research a little bit more. But it seems like protectionism is just a way for a government to benefit its own people right now at the cost of the future. So let's say, for example, in America, right, Trump, he places a bunch of tariffs onto other countries. Why? To protect the people inside the country, right? So somehow the people outside of the country have a competitive advantage over the people inside the country. So it's more profitable for most countries to outsource it to other countries, right? So given that there's a competitive disadvantage for the people in America, shouldn't we try, instead of protecting them, if we protect the people in our country, that means they no longer have to innovate. They no longer have to keep up with the competition, right? They'll be able to make money because Uncle Sam protected them. So without extra competition, there's not going to be extra innovation. So in general, I would disagree with the idea of protectionism. I think we should all be competing. No, we're not going to have any way of contriving some bubble here where we need to just sacrifice innovation so that some people will be happy and so that they'll vote for you later on. No, you should face your problems head on and solve them. Get yourself a competitive advantage instead of trying to have Uncle Sam step in and give you that advantage unfairly. But again, I don't know much about protectionism, so I'll definitely have to read up a little bit more about that. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Absolutely wrong. If by social responsibility you mean societal responsibility, you realize that any company, the reason why we have company, right? The reason why we have company, we have capitalism, is because it's supposed to benefit human society. If it doesn't benefit humanity, there's no reason to support it, right? So just because it delivers a profit to its shareholders doesn't mean it will benefit society. Say you're manufacturing and selling cigarettes, right? Are you helping people? No. You're making lives worse. You're giving people lung cancer, you're destroying the environment, and you're taking their money away, right? You're delivering a great profit to your shareholders, but at the cost of everybody else involved. There's no reason we should accept that. A company who sells cigarettes and does nothing else, they're not good guys. They don't help us in any way. And so they don't fulfill the social responsibility of helping humanity, and so it could be argued, you're selling cigarettes, you don't need to be here. Fuck off. So The only reason we tolerate the existence of companies the only reason we tolerate such greediness is because it happens to help us. And if it doesn't actually help us, we don't need you around. So the only social responsibility of a company should be to help humanity, to help society. Delivering a profit to its shareholders, I couldn't care less. The rich are too highly taxed. I don't know. Look, apparently like 50% of the US population can't make a $500 out-of-pocket expense. Like, most people don't have $500 to spare. Now, if you decreased the amount of wealth, right? If you taxed 10% of a poor person's wealth, you're gonna screw up a lot of things. 10% of a poor person's money, every penny counts if you're poor. Now, compare that to if you're Jeff Bezos and someone takes away 90% of your wealth. Your lifestyle fundamentally will not change. You'll still be a multimillionaire, right? So, even if we tax the poor at 10% and the rich at 90%, who will be affected more? The poor. The rich, the more money you have, the less each dollar is worth to you in your bank account, right? So, the rich should be much, much more highly taxed. They don't need the money, the poor do. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. So, the idea should be that our priority for medical care, how do we figure out who has priority, right? Whose life should be saved first? Well, if you're talking about who is able to pay, then the implication is that the people who are able to pay have more to contribute to society, which is not true, right? If you're Albert Einstein and if you have an IQ of 200 and you make significant contributions to humanity, then I could see an argument where you say, well, I'm really important, I'm an innovator, you should let me go first, let me live, and I'll help you out in the future much more than any random Joe could. Now, how does that relate to how rich you are? It doesn't. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you contribute to society any more than any average Joe, right? So if you want to make the argument that some people are more qualified to survive because they're more beneficial for us, wealth is not the way you determine that. There are some other ways you could use, but wealth is not good. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Yeah. So what you need to understand is the concept of capitalism and how it works is I want something that you have, right? And I'm willing to give up something that I have to get what you have because I want what you want. And so if both people want something that the other person has, then the total amount of value increases when it changes hand because I can make better use of what you have than you can, right? So when the only way you can generate wealth is everybody appreciates what they receive more than what they spent, right, in this exchange. So if you're as a company, if what you do is you sell a lie, if you sell a miracle cure-all, hydroxychloroquine, it'll cure COVID-19, right? It's a complete lie. It doesn't help. It doesn't work. So if you're selling hydroxychloroquine, what are you actually selling? What is your product? What is your service? Is your product hydroxychloroquine? No. Your product, your service is a cure for COVID-19. So what you sell has to align with what your consumers understand that they're receiving. If you give somebody something that they didn't want, you are not helping the economy grow. You're actually shrinking the economy, right? So the way the economy grows is all based on people understanding what they're about to receive and appreciating it and valuing what they receive more than what they give. And so if you're lying to the public, if you're lying to your consumers, you don't get that done, right? So if you're not helping the economy, if you're not helping society, then the government should step in and clear you out, because you're lying, you're not helping anybody. You're just making money off of people's ignorance, right? You're making money off of a lie. There, in no way is there any sort of morality in there. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the abilities of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yeah, I mean, again, once you have a monopoly, you have all the power. Once you have all the power, it's easy to keep that power. Any small businesses that compete with you spring up, just buy them out, right? And you can just go back to the way you were. Any small businesses spring up, all you need to do is use your great influence policy, influence with market tactics. You can drive anybody who competes with you out of business if you have enough power. Once you have power, you can easily keep that power. So we need somebody to check that. The only way to check that is with something that's outside of the free market itself. And that's why we need government to control it. So these are all my answers for the economy section. I think I will cut it here, and I'll be back next week with the next section of the political compass test. Now, I realized in my first video I forgot my outro, so here it is.
I'm and I approve this message.